Recording in progress. Okay, hi guys, it's Kim and Ginger.
Hi,
Uh,
friends.
um, we just want to start. We're going to talk about all kinds of things tonight, including the Titanic submersible thing that's going on, and we're going to talk about past lives and reincarnation stuff. But we're going to start with talking about the summer solstice because it's yesterday. And
Yeah.
what Ginger and I were just talking, or Ginger was talking about, was go on, say about what Mother's Day is and what Father's Day is.
Well, it has struck me the last few years that Mother's Day seems to arrive on the day that we really should be. It's nice to think of mom, but we really should be in the garden. It appears to me to be one of the first best moments to plant seed of the spring season here. And yeah, it just seems like such a huge distraction when we should be planting. I'm not fond of these 2 days. I feel like, honor your mother, father, if it feels right to you, by all means. But to set aside a whole day, I think it's a trauma day for a lot of people. It's a reminder that you didn't get a good set or that you didn't have any, so for me, it's 2 days that I'd like to just abandon personally, because I feel like it's highly emotionally charged. Having said that, I noticed this year that the Father's Day here in Canada is celebrated on the eve of the summer solstice, which is kind of odd to me as the moon moves into the sign of, or sorry, as the sun moves into the sign of Cancer. Cancer is ruled by Mother Moon. So why are we celebrating dads at that time? And mothers would normally be the ones planting the seeds. So again, it just seems backwards to me if there has to be a celebration. Otherwise, I do feel like it's a trauma celebration for a lot of us, and one worth abandoning. Not because we don't care about mom and dad, but because I think the dates are really backwards.
I think the date's messed up anyway. I mean, somebody said to me today, today's the somebody said that heard on the radio this morning that today was the shortest day of the year. And I said, no, it's the 22nd. It's
Yeah,
not, they'd heard that on the radio this morning. And I said, no, yesterday was the shortest day of the year because the 21st, it's always the 21st. It's never been anything but the 21st. And that's December, any day, like solstice and equinoxes, they always land on the 21st. But there seems
that's
to be
right.
some sort of mix up with the calendars, and they keep on pronouncing to everybody else that it's different dates and things, and it's a little bit confusing.
Yes, I agree. I
Okay.
agree. I think it's important to go with the flow, but when it doesn't feel like we're in the right flow, I think it's also important to question it and to reevaluate it. And same for our professionals in the world. It's time to test their aptitude. Are they really competent and able to do the job? Are they fit for duty? I think a lot of our professionals, not just holidays, everything is worth questioning.
Mm. I was just having like a little bit of a discussion earlier on Telegram with somebody about I don't know, something that's come through to me lately. There seems to be a lot of focus on discrediting the alternative media.
Yes.
But the problem is in discrediting the alternative media, who are they trying to convince? The people that
Well,
are following the
themselves.
alternative media, are they trying to convince them? Are they trying to convince the people that are already convinced that the alternative media is bullshit? Then they they're talking to the choir if they're trying to convince that crowd because they're not convinced anyway. So I don't know. Just all seems a bit of a I don't know, just non-event thing.
Your background is fitting. I mean, I get that
Circus.
music in my head. Da, 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 da. We're at the circus. What do we make of it? What's in the big ring?
So
That's our big ring to manage.
so I woke up this morning to remembering a Michael Jackson video. Um, and I can't remember what it's called. It's the one where he's on the must be dangerous. It must be dangerous because he's on the album cover and he's in the fairground and he's going through in this boat. It's a video. And maybe I'll find it later. But I know right at the end of it, he's got this screen, like my background, the screen, but his body's part of it. And he stands up and he breaks up the it breaks up the big, what do you call that thing? Called roller coaster, and the whole circus breaks up when he stands up. So obviously the depiction is that he is the circus. He is the playground. He is that's him. He's created
That's
it all.
brilliant, Kim. I
Mm,
love your analogy. That's
mm.
brilliant. Yes, it's so
I woke up
true.
I woke up to that this morning. So the other thing that I've been thinking about today, just to change the subject a bit, was something that I sent you a message about before, which was this submersible. And I was a little bit, I don't know. I'm thinking, well, esoterically, why Titanic? Titanic's huge. Why submersible? Why this depth? And like you said, I mean, we're at the height of the summer solstice, or at the height of the summer. And then at the same token, the press is talking about the depths. And I wonder if I can tell you the story without disclosing who the story was about. I can, I think.
I think you can.
Um, Somebody I know had a tattoo, and I asked them why they'd chosen that particular tattoo, and the tattoo was of an eagle. And then later on, I was talking to their partner and asked them if they had an animal totem, what their animal totem would be. And they said, the orca, the killer whale.
Mm.
And I said, that's really interesting because in the Indian, American Indian tradition, at their peace treaties, they used to have those two animals as the emblems depicting the heights and the depths, and that the treaty or the peace treaty or whatever the peace would be found somewhere in between the heights and the depths. And it was interesting that they picked those two animal totems as a couple, that the peace lay somewhere in between, which is the
Yes.
extremes. So I don't know. I mean, I'm really curious as to why this submersible thing's come up right now. What's it about? Titanic, huge depth? I don't know.
Well, and the word whale always reminds me of the Welsh, the whales. You know, when there's words that sound like other words, I get very, it really grabs my attention when there's more than one meaning or more than one spelling to the same sound. So I feel like there's a connection there, the highs and the lows, we are the in between. I think we've demonstrated that a number of times in our videos. We are the in between. We are the decision makers about whether we stay in a high value, high vibing vortex or a low value, low vibing vortex. And this is the solar plexus. And I feel that this is what summer is all about. It's about time for us to nourish our solar plexus. And that is coming through for me very strongly. Hope you can see the sun behind us. It's important for us to take the sun in, whether we're in the north or the south right now. Very important for us to take the sun in during these 3 days. It's a big download. And it lights us up. The plexus is the definition of plexus is where the light bends. It's where we bend, and it's the center of our being. It's where we bend. It's where we make a decision. It's the gut instinct. It's the part that really feeds the intuition. It's the right before you intuit something. It's the gut. It's the inner child. It's the soul, the solar plexus.
Okay,
It's the no.
let me interrupt for a second because you said it's where we bend. So
Correct.
so that in other language would be where we're flexible, where we bend, you know, where we change our mind. It's a gut feeling. I've got a gut feeling about this, and I'm not going to turn left. I'm going to turn right because my gut's telling me the right way to go is the right. So it is where we bend. It's that solar
It,
plexus. It's that
it's our
area.
will,
Yeah.
our will, our will. Will we, or will we say I can't?
Mm,
Will we move forward, or will we stop and say, because it's easier to say I can't, and then
mm,
we just stay idle, you know? But
mm,
if we say I will, if we want something and we say I will, that's the will. It's the solar plexus, it's the fire in our belly, it's what lights us, it's the belligerent child, it's the temper tantrum in every one of us. That baby is still on board, and that child within is still there. And how will it respond? That's the bending. You know, how will it respond when we're triggered over something? Will we have a tantrum? Will we take responsibility? Because a lot of children will say, oh no, I didn't do it. They're afraid they're going to get in trouble. It's very, you know, but adults have these behaviors too. You know,
yeah.
for an adult living in a low vibrational energy, they're not going to take responsibility either, because they're still living in a deep fear state that existed likely while they were in a child state. And that child is still very much dictating how we drive our chariot.
Mm, mm,
And when you think of the lowest vibration of a child, you know, tantrums and I didn't do it, and, you know, so a little deception, a little defiance, that's the lowest, you know, something is wrong, inner child is broken. And, but the healthy inner child is what? Creative, playful, joyful, free, free, free,
maybe
free to be,
maybe cheeky as
not
well.
controlled, cheeky, not controlled, you know, lighthearted. You know, when you think of the healthy, balanced child within, you know, what does that look like? So it's up to us to embrace that energy now more than ever, as we're at the plexus, we're at that solar plexus part where we're learning to choose.
Okay. All right. So if anybody's got any ideas about any of that, they can make a comment about it or anything. But the other thing I wanted to talk about was the what you were saying earlier about the three, oh, you were saying this the other night about the 3, 5, and 7, and that what Ginger was telling me was if you don't have a 3, 5, or a 7 in your birthday, that it's likely it, it donates skepticism if these numbers are missing. So if you're wondering why you're a skeptic, it might just be that you don't have those numbers anywhere in your birth chart. So that means like I'm talking about traditional birth date, which in my case is the 9th of June, 1961, which is 969, what, sorry, 961961. So there's no 3, 5, or 7 in there. So it could be a reason as to why I'm so skeptical in relation to inputting new information.
Well, I
So
think it's a bonus to have this in your chart if you're missing those three digits, because you become more of a critical thinker. You know, skepticism is sort of a frowned upon word, whereas to me, it's requires critical thinking. You're going to require data. You're going to need proof, and you're not going to just take things at face value. And I think that it's a powerful energy to have. These are based on these digits, and these analyses are based on Pythagoras's work, specifically the arrows of Pythagoras, which I did touch on in a video on my channel
you did, yeah.
some time ago. And I
Yeah.
may go a little further with that because I do think there's a great amount of value in that.
I'd like
But
to
I
go
think
further
that,
with that.
yeah,
Maybe on a different date, we'll make a particular
well, then
video about it. But
we'll
I
do
just
that.
wanted to mention that you'd said that the other night, and I went, oh, because I wrote it down. I make notes about everything, me. So later date, we'll do a whole Pythagorean video. So, right, to change the subject again, um, was a whole There's a whole video done by Bashar that I watched. Now Bashar is a guy that was well, he's been around for some time. For those of you that don't know, he's a guy called Daryl Anker. It's his real name, and he supposedly channels an alien called Bashar. And I mean, I love his stuff. I've been following him for years, and he's got some great little sayings, and he's got some great philosophy there in relation to just getting through life. But he came up with this video the other day on past life or reincarnation. And again, Ginger and I had this big discussion, but the whole concept with the reincarnational thing is, as far as I'm concerned, the idea of reincarnation or past lives, the way it's been presented to us, has a serious flaw. And it has a serious flaw from my pop-up world thinking viewpoint, but also because I'm so skeptical about history these days. So 20, 30 years ago, I was completely convinced that past lives existed and that we'd all had them, and even convinced of having memories of them, having memories of various different past lives. But now I'm not so sure, because from where my framework exists right now, everything's happening in the now, and all we are is like an accumulation of this now moment. And a past life could be something, I don't know, it's like as you go through life, your life goes through different chapters and everything changes. So
Well,
for me,
I
anyway,
think to say that there's not a past is ludicrous, because we can remember people that we've spent time with who are simply no longer here. We can't bring them back. Now, we can time travel energetically and remember what it was like to, break bread with them, spend time with them, have those times with them, but we can't bring them back. It's gone. It's in the past.
yeah, but the interesting thing is, it's like if you take any portion, I'll just use an example, a job that I worked in for 5 years. If I recall the memory of that job, it's going to come through as a 30-second glimpse. It's going to come through as a photograph or a snapshot. And it probably won't even be a moving picture. It'll probably be a freeze frame of that 5 years, like one picture or two pictures or three pictures. But that's all it is now. It it's not, when you recall it, it isn't 5 years worth of memory. You go, wow, I did that for 5 years and I can only remember three things that happened. Is that not
That
weird?
doesn't surprise me. I've been in lectures where I've had a lecturer tell me, if you're writing things down in a lecture, then you likely won't remember much of any of it.
Yeah.
And most of us are only going to remember. Now, this was a bit startling. He said most of us will only take away 25% of the information that was shared in that lecture. He said, and then if you don't use it, you're likely only going to retain perhaps 1%. 1%. So your whole day is reduced to 1% gigabyte file. You know, it's compressed. It's like a little zip file that's hidden away in there.
Yeah.
Will you remember it when the time comes? Probably
Yeah.
not if you don't integrate it and make it part of your daily habit.
Ah, but there again, you could have learned how to play a card game at 8
Mhm.
and not play it again until you're 50. And then you play it for 2 minutes and you remember all about it straight away. It comes straight back to you, even though you've not played it since you were 8.
And it's a permanent memory now, which I find very cool.
Mm.
It's a muscle memory now. It becomes one of our core memories. It becomes a part of who we are, just like our belief systems. This is why it's so challenging to wake people up, per se. Um, you know, we are very much stuck in our ways. And is there one truth? I can't say that there is one truth. I
All
don't
right.
think that we're built, I don't think that this realm is built like that. I think it's more like the carnival in your background.
Mm,
We've each got a different ride that we're responsible for.
mm.
And it's an opportunity here that we have is to take self-responsibility. And the players that are really struggling this year are those ones that are really stuck in that last level. And we're moving forward, because I can't say that time exists so much as the season and the energy of the flow that of the moment that we're in. So time I feel is a bit man-made. But I do feel like there's a past, present, future element to everything. And to me, it's that Trinity. It's that holy Trinity, the creation story, the past, the present, the future. So the past is like, what did we think of? What do we think of that? In the present moment, what do we do with that? And in the future, well, it's really dependent upon what we do with that in the moment. The
I
future is ours to create.
I think the future's ours to create, and I think that we actually create the future with our intent.
Correct.
So, it might be unbeknownst to us, or we can do it. We can bring it to the forefront and write down our intent. I've got these books things, and I write notes on them all the time, and I've got an intent book that I write my intents in all the time, and try and be mindful of the world that I'm creating, the world I'm creating around myself. But anyway, before we go too far beyond this, I've actually got a little Bashar video here,
Yes,
and I want to play this little Bashar video for you. Now, I can't give you a link to this because it's like one of those videos that I had to download onto my screen because I don't know where it came from. But it came through as a download, not as a YouTube. So I'm going to share the screen, and then I'm going to share the sound, and then I'm going to play the video.
sounds good.
All right. Let me know if you can hear it.
Nothing yet, Kim.
So is it true then that we continue to
And then I'll just turn it up.
Yeah, that would work.
It's actually not going to go very loud, but I'll try it.
be reborn and have many, many lives?
That's an experience you can create, but that's not the underlying mechanism because, again, everything exists all at once. That means every single person exists now. So you as a person have never been anyone else, and no one else can actually become you because all the people exist right now. What you're doing is you're creating energy connections to them, to other people that simultaneously coexist with you right now, but in what you call the past or the future or alternate realities. And you are downloading information and experience from them that helps you in your theme of exploration in this life, just like they might be doing with you. But this is a dynamically changing thing. As you become a different person, you might unplug from this one and plug into another one and download different information. But from your space-time perspective, you interpret that connection as a memory of the past. So you think it's my past life. It's not yours at all. It's theirs. That's a different person.
Right, I'm going to press pause there because I don't think the sound's very good on that.
I could hear him, and I think he makes a very valid point.
Yeah, I do too. So what he's actually saying is that we're all existing in the now. We're all here right now, even though we may have different perspectives, and that the past lives are actually not past lives at all, but they're past memories of events where we've interacted with individuals and then thought in a sort of psychosis way that we were those individuals when we've actually interacted with that memory of interacting with that individual rather than, so we thought that we were that individual because that's the way we've held on to the memory.
Mm-hmm.
And that would explain a lot as to why we all have memories of past lives or memories of being something else or somebody else or somewhere else. But technically we never were that. That's just a memory of an event that happened.
Well,
That
if you sit and think of yourself on a swing, you can conjure up what? A memory or a visualization? I mean, we don't actually know what it is that we're tapping into. We believe a lot of it to be memory, especially if there's, big stories that we've taken the time to integrate. So again, back to that 1%, what do we actually remember anyway? What do we actually store? How much of it gets reduced to a 1 gigabyte zip file?
exactly. And then the other thing is that once you become skeptical about the idea of history, then you can't think about past lives in a chronological viewpoint at all, because you're skeptical about the fact that history happened the way that we've been traditionally thought it did. So
Yes.
how can you say you were a Roman soldier if there was never such thing as a Roman soldier?
There's, I think that you're not wrong. I think that it's the word that we've come to use to describe what we believe about a time that we really have no solid memory of. And people may think they do, but I honestly think that they're conjuring, putting themselves, like visualizing themselves in those situations. I think the mind is powerful. Have you ever heard of false memory?
No.
I have, and I believe that it is true, where a person believes with all their heart that what they're saying is true. And then they realize, I've seen them stop and say, wait a minute, is that all in my mind? You know, so it's like somehow they've convinced themselves that this story is true. But somebody who lies, for example, if they're
Yeah,
very deceptive,
I've
they
witnessed
start to
that.
believe their own
I
lies.
know. I've
And
witnessed people say, I rolled the car 3 times, and you discover that they had a ding.
yeah, it's an exaggeration, and it's our reaction and our storytelling skills that enhances the story.
Hmm.
I think for us to retain more of the story, the practice of gratitude really helps. So when we sit down and reflect upon what it is we've just learned or experienced, and give more attention to it. Like my journaling is about gratitude, and it's really remembering to give thanks, and put my focused attention. Subsequently, I feel that my memory of each moment that I sit and write about has become greater because I've given it more of my attention and brought it into my subconscious. And I have a question about that. Is it the subconscious helping, or is there a spiritual helper, or is it all us? I mean, it's a very curious world that we live in.
Just gonna shut that down and stop the show. Sorry. Okay.
And in terms of like true stories, who knows? I mean, our families haven't always even told the truth about, who is the father of or the mother of, blatant lies to
Oh,
protect or to
mm,
deceive. Or
mm,
how can
mm.
we ever get our big history right when our micro history is
And
so convoluted?
both you and I have had personal experiences with that,
Oh
where
yeah.
where you quite convinced that somebody's related to you in a certain way and actually they're not, or the reverse of that. You're quite convinced that somebody's not related to you and it turns out that they're your brother,
Yes.
and you're going, wow, really? So, and that's again, like you said, and that was very much part of that generation that came up and before us, because they were
Yeah.
so promiscuous, that generation that you know lived around the 50s and the 60s. They became very, very self-absorbed and very open sexually and very, I
I
don't
heard
know.
yesterday that it's kind of trendy to change your name now. So a lot of noticeable, highly recognizable people are changing their name. I
Really?
think part of that may be, contractual agreements, like, for example, Prince, who started using a symbol instead of using the name that they paid for. He wanted his freedom. He was trying to establish his freedom, it seemed, from the industry. So I do find it very interesting that there appears to be a trend of stars changing their identity,
Mm, that's interesting.
allowing themselves to become a different vibration, if you will.
Mm. And I mean, I've got to admit, I've often thought it would be very, very, very tiresome to be famous. I mean, I know
Yes.
there's perks in relation to money and doors flying open and all the rest of it, but um, I've got to admit that it's never something that would remotely appeal to me as being something good. I think it would be terrible to have to brush your hair before you went to the shops, or um, not be allowed to go outside the house without your makeup on, or I couldn't imagine anything worse. Or somebody
It's a
criticizing me for
prison,
the color of trousers that I'm wearing, you know?
a
I wouldn't.
prison.
A prison, yeah, of sorts. Mm.
Yeah, I'm quite reluctant. Like I've always, I've watched the movies. I thought, oh, that looks like fun. But there was always, like, Michael Jackson, there was always such a dark side to his childhood.
Oh,
I never felt right watching those kids perform. It just, as much as I enjoyed the music and the sounds, I always wondered, like,
where's their childhood?
what kind of childhood are these kids having? Where I'm out playing baseball or riding a bike, or, they can't.
Mm-hmm,
They can't.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So it's a dark place, that's for sure. And yeah,
And it
it's
makes for some very, very strange, very messed up people as well. I mean, if you look at people like I don't know, is it Miley Cyrus that was a Disney child? I don't know.
yes,
Have I got the right name there?
yes.
So if you look at what she says about her background, or what she says about her childhood, or whatever, or even I don't know. There's other ones I can't remember them because I'm not really up on the modern day. Um, but they often talk about their childhoods. When they had very famous childhoods, they end up very messed up as adults.
Well, so many of them appear to have been transgendered also. As you look at Sonny and Cher's child, Chastity, she's now Chaz. And but I actually think if you take a close look at that little girl, I actually see a little boy dressed as a girl. And so were they trying to protect their children in some way, hiding their identity? Like, we'll dress you up as a girl, nobody will recognize you as a boy. What was their thinking? I don't know, but I think if you look closely, you'll see that many, many children are not who we think they were.
Who was Tony Curtis's child as well?
Jamie Lee. And that
Yeah,
was shown to us in their birth
yeah,
announcement.
yeah. Like there was a thing that came on. I didn't take a picture of it, but Jamie Lee was actually born a boy. Is that
That's
correct?
what they say. Yeah, they announced the birth as their son,
Mm.
Jamie Lee. So there's a photo, black and white photo. Again, who knows if it's true, but it's been out there for a while now that they introduced him and then he became she. And this is quite well known in the a lot of schools are promoting this, the acceptance of, I can accept it, but, like, why are we talking about this in school? When did this become a subject to be, revealed to children? We're talking about children. Why do they need to have these discussions? Why do we have to introduce these thoughts? If they're not already having it, I think that's healthy. If they have a pretty good identity, but then when we start to have these conversations, the children are going to start questioning, well, am I? Who am I? I mean, I think that's what we're all promoting,
And
is a deep dive into who we are. But when you're
and
making a suggestion that you might be a cat instead of a human,
yeah, no.
uh, at some point, the tolerance. And the other thing I kind of want to say to that is that there's a great amount of value and the wound, in the wound. So when we're looking at the solar plexus again, we're kind of looking at the wounded child. And that wound becomes part of our story. And there's a great amount of power with those wounds. And, you know, at any given time, you might disclose something about yourself in order to leverage a little more power in a situation. Like, you know, for example, I'm sensitive to the light. Now, everybody has to sit in the dark, for example, maybe, but to give you sort of an idea what I'm trying to get at, you know, we have to be concerned about everyone else's sensitivities now. We're creating this world where it's impossible for us to speak, and we're now being forced to use certain words. And I find this is kind of a disturbing trend.
What words have we been forced to use?
Well, again, back into the see the pronoun debate. There's a great debate about who uses what pronouns, and if we get it wrong, if you get it wrong in California, you can be fined and or jailed, I think. I mean, they've got these really, you know, serious laws where if you get the person's pronoun wrong, you can be crucified. You know, is it not okay that a person did their best, and if they butchered your pronoun, can it not be accepted? You know, the person whose pronoun was butchered, can they not have a little tolerance for the person that was doing their best? I mean, if it's being done in a hateful way, that's different. But, you know, it's creating a wave of fear. You know,
I don't,
fear, people are afraid to, oh, I can't say that anymore.
I mean, realistically, Ginger, it doesn't, it isn't something that, I don't know. I mean, if I'm having a conversation with somebody and somebody says, oh, you used the wrong pronoun when you address me, I'd say, you know, I'm sorry about that. And I'd walk away and probably never talk to that person again because it's just too hard.
Mhm.
Be like,
Well,
don't talk to
there's
me. I use the wrong pronoun. Don't want anything more to do with you.
it leverages power, I think, because the person who is choosing to be offended over the wrong use of pronoun is taking power by saying, you're wrong, you did something wrong, and you hurt me. And how can they possibly, like, if you take your power back, nobody else has an effect on you, you know? So it's like we're feeding the weakest instead of feeding, and it's like looking at all the negatives instead of looking at the positives. We're inclined to do this.
Uh, I mean, that comes back to the video that we did a couple of weeks ago where you say, you know what you don't want, but you don't,
Correct.
but you're giving focus to what you don't want. So you're getting
And that's
caught up in the pronoun debate when you actually don't want to be there at all, which is exactly the reason why I'm saying if somebody wants to get caught up in pronouns, that's fine. I haven't got a problem with that. It's just that unfortunately I can't be your friend anymore. I can't talk to you anymore. But that's okay. I mean, I've got nothing against you. I just don't want to get caught up in that.
it's a battleground, right? And it's a choice that we make. Do we really need to battle over somebody's poor use of pronouns? Have we really sunk so low that there's nothing more important to talk about? Speaking of sinking so low, Kim, you know, the submersible, all of that's quite interesting timing.
Yeah, sinking to low. And then even that $250,000 that it costs you to go on it, that figure at 25% or that 250,000, I don't know.
And
How many?
13,000 feet, you know, wasn't it 13,000 feet under the
I was going to say
13,000
30
feet?
leagues under the sea.
Yeah,
Yeah.
13,000. So those numbers are no coincidence. It's all
Mm-hmm.
movie magic again, I feel. And
Mm-hmm.
I apologize to anybody that may know the persons in the submersible. Um, you know, I give my deepest regrets if I'm wrong about my analogy that this is more of a distraction, and it's scripted distraction.
And
And
the same with the same with the
the timing
pronouns.
is obviously perfect.
if we've offended anybody by the pronoun conversation, then I'm sorry, but you probably are better off going elsewhere. Because I don't really
Correct.
want to debate it, it's just like,
Yeah, we're not objecting to anybody's pronoun. Choose your, do your thing by all means. I think you and I promote that quite heavily.
yeah,
But when it comes to telling me what I can and cannot say,
yeah,
no, I'm doing my best, and I don't think it's okay that you get to decide which words I must use. No, that's not freedom.
mm-hmm. I agree.
That's forced speech. I was looking at automatic writing prompts, so this kind of ties in too, Kim. To get to the bottom of things, how can we sort of reach that part of us, the mystical side of us, the inner child. And if we ask open-ended questions, and so for example, if you wanted to touch base, if your belief system is that, your loved ones are still nearby, you might write an open-ended question like, Grandma wants to know, dot, dot, dot. Or you may write, who was I in a past life, for example? And you might say, once upon a time, and just allow whatever comes forward to come forward. Now, it's a big imaginarium, and we don't know for sure if it's your subconscious mind feeding the answer, or if it truly is a past life, or if it's a spiritual helper. We don't know. It's whatever we've been sort of conditioning ourselves to accept as true. It's that energy that will reveal itself. And it'll be different for each one of us. And so I got once upon a time a dragon sat on a cliff.
Yes.
Excuse me. And you may dive a little deeper, and the dragon's name is Bartholomew. You may just allow it to disclose itself to you if that's of interest to you. It's a way for us to tap into the great unknown without having to pay somebody an exorbitant amount of money. We don't have to pay 250,000 to go to the bottom of the sea.
Yeah, you can go to the depths anyway.
Yeah. And
So
since when was that even an option? Like, how many people have they five?
I don't know.
How many people are supposed to be on board this submersible?
I really don't know.
I'm not sure either. I haven't actually seen the news, but I'm hearing people talk about it.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is I always find that with because I don't watch the news at all, I always find that with these memes that people are talking about, there's always these key numbers or there's a key factor in there and the time of the year that this is happening, it's like the heights to the depths and what esoterically, why is this coming to our attention at the moment? Does this mean that we're stretching ourselves to like if we were rubber bands, right? If our lives were rubber bands and we're stretching ourselves now to the absolute maximum depth and height to the extremes we've never stretched ourselves to before. Is that what we're talking about here esoterically? Because technically it's all going on inside of us if it's a
Yes,
pop-up world.
yes,
So they're just depicting some sort of, and I even asked the question if the 25,000 was something like 25%. So does that mean that we're a quarter of the way there? And that it relates to some time or something? I don't know. I got back onto that subject again, but
submersible. The word sub came to mind. Submission, submit.
admit,
So that's what I got from sub. And mer obviously is water. Mers, the merry land, the merry time. Submerry. So it's underwater. Sub is under, I guess. Under. So underwater and able. They spell it IBLE, but it's also known as able. Underwater able. So I didn't get a whole lot from the actual word that they're using. We are the water. I agree with you, Kim. We are the pop-up world. We are the playground.
okay. So I was asking a question for some months now, actually since Nigel died probably. And I was asking myself, I felt that I'd lost some of my gauge or my direction in relation to
Yes.
why I'm here, what am I doing, what am I meant to be doing. I felt that I felt more sure about that last year than I do this year. Like, what direction am I meant to be? Where's my direction best utilized? What direction am I meant? And when I ask these questions, I'm not really asking necessarily for myself. I'm asking for the greater good of all, meaning it's a holistic question, not an individual egotistical question. It's like,
Yes.
where am I meant to be going? What would benefit everybody in relation to what it is I'm meant to do now? So I'd had a bit of a block on it and a bit of a block on it and a bit of a block on it. But then about a month ago, I got a bit of insight. And the insight was, you're asking it wrong. And I'm saying, okay, well, how am I asking it wrong? And the answer came to me, because we can't tell you. We can't give you the answer, because that would make it way too easy. So you got to ask the question, if you're asking for guidance, you're asking for a particular insight or something, you can't ask it like you're asking it, because we can't answer it. Oh, okay. So how do I ask it? Well, you can ask us to leave you clues or a trail for you to follow. And then it's up to you whether you notice the white feathers on the ground. You could be looking at the
It's
sky.
true. Are we in this now moment? And that's what I like again about the automatic writing, is that it brings us into the now moment and it allows us to explore what's right there, what's hidden in plain sight. So you might write a question like, I am not seeing, and allow whatever it is that you're not seeing to be shown to you. And, because there are things that we've said no to, that it's been offered to us, and we've said, strong no.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want that. But
Mm-hmm.
maybe in the future, you change your mind and you're a little more open to the possibility. So, what is it that I'm not seeing? My biggest obstacle is, you might write questions like that and just allow the information to come with you, to come to you. I can attract, and you might, choose your words, kindness by, I can attract money by, and so just choosing what it is that you really want to work on. And it's one big puzzle. And you might ask about past lives. In my past life, and just allow things to be revealed to you. And I
But
think
the
the challenge for a lot of people is to stop questioning it, because dragon, like, that's nuts. You're going to say, oh, that's crazy. That can't be. And then that option is sort of removed from your awareness because you've rejected it.
I had at one stage I was really into the idea of past life regressions, right? And I went off to do a past life regression. Went off to do some investigation in relation to past life regressions. And I really liked Michael Newton's work in this area. I really liked what he'd done. So decided to go to a Michael Newton practitioner, because he's got his own college where he teaches people to do past life regressions. And it was very expensive. And I went off to get one of these Michael Newton past life regressions done. It wasn't done by Michael Newton, but it was done by one of his people he trained. And so it's quite a few years ago, this. And I wasn't able to be regressed at all. It was hours, it was all day. And I wasn't able to be regressed at all. And I don't know whether that's because I'm a bit strong-minded, so therefore it's very hard for me to let my mind go completely.
And I think you may have made a decision based on that. You may have made a decision to say, you can't get me,
Yeah.
and subsequently making it
Stubborn.
impossible to break through. oh, it won't work. This is nuts. The skeptic in us, right? We both share that in our chart. And so I feel that there's something to be said about that. Whereas if you went in there open-minded and said, okay, right, I'm ready, you may have had a lot more
but
shown to you.
but I did have one experience, right? It was funny, it's because this relates to what you were saying about the dragon, right? I did have
Yes.
one experience in there. And this one experience I had was that I was water. I was this blob of water. And
Hmm.
I wasn't the ocean. I was a blob of water sitting in a, it's like she said, I always happen to be in conference rooms for some unknown reason. But I am this blob of water in a conference room sitting in a chair. And there's other blobs of water sitting in the conference room, sitting in other chairs. That was funny.
That makes sense to me because I think we're all stardust. And if you really zoom in, take your cell phone, go outside on a clear night and zoom into the brightest stars, what you'll see is more of a liquid gas, crystalline, watery. It's not what we've been told.
I'm actually gonna share the screen and show you that because it's quite mind blowing.
That's great.
I'm just gonna bring some up. So, um,
I think it's really cool. And you get to see, high definition with some of the images that I've seen. You can really, people have some amazing cameras and it's pretty clear. Like if you can do this with your cell phone, it's pretty clear that the CGI imagery that that's been shown to the masses is just cartoons. It's a cartoon. So where'd all that money go? You know, why let's just start our own research, fresh start.
I was gonna try and find some photos, but I'm not typing the right parameters in, obviously. Can you just talk a little bit more while I look?
Absolutely. That's never been a problem for me. Well, I did sort of really get that hit about the inner child and the higher and the lower vortex. So the broken and the healed inner child. I'm going there for a moment, Kim. Um, how does that all fit into the macro? So that's me on a micro. We've all got this on board. So each of us have that. How does that fit? My wound is bigger than yours. So it might sound like something like that. We're feeding the lower vibration. We each want, like, my suffering is greater than yours. I'm worthy of reclamation and you're not. And so it's a kind of a curious thing. How does it show up in the macro? you know so each of us has this wounded child on board, and I would suggest that this whole energy didn't exist before. I think that children are usually quite resilient, and they can teach us a lot about recovery and bouncing back and remembering to play daily. uh but at some point we started to see through media, I believe, that our parents don't look anything like those parents on the TV. They don't act like that. They're not talking to me like that. So we were shown what a parent is supposed to look like, and we were told what our lives were supposed to look like. And subsequently, instead of being thankful for the lot that we had, we started to really separate from the family. And I think that this is a great reason why we're actually seeking community now. And I think it's of great relevance. I think that the media really influenced our wounding, telling us that it had to be a certain way. And, did you find any good star images there, Kim?
I'm sharing the screen. Okay, this is
Yeah, that's exactly.
right.
Wow. So
So
cool.
so this is four stars zoomed in with the Nikon P1000. That's
Correct.
Beetlejuice. I love the way that's spelled because it it doesn't look like Beetlejuice. Octarius Spica and Procreon or something. So these are just stars. I'll give you a link to this later.
It's us. It's you as a blob of water.
What's happening there? It's not playing. Why is it not playing? Oh, I went to the next video. Whoops.
Whoop,
Hold on. Whoops. Oops. Go back.
bump, bump, chicky,
Right.
chicky.
So what's happening? Why is it not there? It is playing. It's just stuck on the. Okay. There you go. Okay. Okay. This is him focusing. Look at that.
Isn't that gorgeous? Like this is what's above us. It's not still, it's constantly in motion, just like us. We are energy in motion. We are emotion. What are we emoting?
Unfocused version. Look at that.
Mhm.
And how could you say that that's a planet?
How
I
can you
mean,
say it's in the air when it looks like it's in the water? The
yeah,
water's above.
yeah. I mean, that's weird.
It's a pulse of energy.
Mm. I've got a bit of a theory about these stars. I probably told you about it before, but I've got a theory that each of these stars gives off a sound vibration, and
Absolutely.
it's these stars that are actually affecting our consciousness or changing or altering our consciousness through their
I agree.
pulses that they're giving out.
Is it fair to say that we influence the star? I think so. I think it's reciprocal. Every reading I've ever done, it's reciprocal. I'm gaining as much as I'm giving. Yeah,
I've got a bit of a thing about David Bowie, him telling us in that last video of his that this is what the essence of what he is, that he becomes,
yes,
that he becomes a black star and then he becomes a visible star beyond that.
yes.
And that he says in that video that he can't tell us, but he can show us. I'm trying to remember that. I can't remember the name of the video found, but
This is observable. This is what I like about this video.
yeah.
When we take our cameras and we go outside on a clear night sky, you can see
Mm.
this yourself. They're
Mhm.
not still. You will
Mhm.
not be able to get a very good shot of, like I sent you a picture of what I was able to capture last night. I don't
Mhm.
even try very hard anymore because the harder I try, the blurrier it gets. It's not easy to film the night sky.
I haven't got a very good camera on my phone, but okay, so
Well, and it's us
sharing.
too. We're vibrating. So if we're able to put it on a secure stand, a tripod or something,
Yeah.
that'll help
Oops.
because we're also vibrating like that star. We're pulsating,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very hard to keep the camera still.
I'll give you a link to that. Sorry,
That's very cool.
I'll give you a link to that at the end of the video. But that type of thing, all you've got to do to get loads and loads and loads of images of the different stars in the sky is that in that instance, all I typed in was P1000 Nikon stars, and it just gives you loads and loads and loads of different videos of people who've actually taken videos of that and then shared them. If you haven't got
Also
the
reminds me of
camera
Dr.
equipment,
Emoto's work, like
I know,
the
I
images that
know,
they get in the ice water.
yeah.
Dr. Emoto's work comes to mind,
And
and
then
cymatics.
the other thing that they're really, really talking about big time at the moment is this really weird pulse that came off the Shuman resonance. All right, so let me share this with you because this is like super weird. It freaked me out a bit, was this earlier? So I'm going to share the screen and I'm going to share the sound. Just give me 2 seconds. Share sound. Oh, I'm already sharing the sound. Okay.
Okay.
This came through earlier. So somebody turned the Schumann resonance. You see the picture on the screen there of incredible pattern. They were saying that the Schumann resonance, now the Schumann resonance, from what I understand, is the actual vibration of the planet, the pulse
Okay.
of the planet. And if you look over, can you see that picture there?
Yes.
Okay. So if you look at this particular channel, right, in the past, if I go through the historical data of I mean, this is the usual thing for the Schumann resonances. They usually look like, if I go through, scroll up, they usually look like this type of thing,
Yes.
right? That's quite common for it to look like that or like that. And then the other day, suddenly it looks like this, like a really, really
Yeah.
complex pattern.
Who's measuring it, Kim?
In
Who's,
this
how are
case,
they? I have to wonder who's measuring it, how are they measuring it? And the word shoe man, the shoe man. So that really hit this time. I know it's spelt different, but the shoe man, it keeps us detached energetically from the earth. Our
mhm,
rubber soles, you know, I
mhm,
think of the Beatles, rubber sole, the shoe man. So what if we all took our shoes off and reconnected our energy to the earth?
mm,
What would
mm,
the resonance be then?
mm.
That's what hit as I was listening to that awful sound.
I know, it was really strange. Somebody said in the chat that their cat had heard it and stood like completely still and frozen and didn't move for a few minutes after it heard it, you know? It just froze it. But
And
I
so
I
then
had the same
what
thought
are
as
we?
you. Like I'm a total skeptic with anything like this. I
Yeah,
look at this and go, yeah, that's a pretty picture, or that might be right, or but who's measuring this and how do you know that's real? And how do you know that the Earth's actually got a pulse and and where's it measured from and who's measuring it and what they're using to measure it? All these questions, it just ends up creating more questions than it does answers.
but it is interesting to see that because I know a lot of people are convinced. A lot of people are convinced in that line of thinking, just like, I do believe that there's a sound. I can hear it all around me right now. The birds attune me. The sounds are all different, just like us. We each have a different sound.
Hmm.
And when one of us has our Taurus field blocked, we all have it blocked. So what happens if we all break through these blocks?
But then the other thing is that you can hear somebody's voice that you haven't heard for 30 years and recognize. I mean, how ridiculous is that? Like,
To
how
immediately recognize.
how unique is it that each one of us has a complete and absolute unique imprint?
Our own sound, our own cymatics, our own fingerprints, our own Fibonacci
Yeah.
sequence on board. We've got everything. We are a representation
Ind
of nature. We are
individually,
electromagnetic beings of light.
and each of one of us is unique.
Oh, definitely. And we are an angle of light. We are the angels. We
Yeah,
are the giants. When I
yeah,
think of the Titanic, I think of the giants. And
yeah.
they wanted to take us to the depths of the ocean, the cold North Atlantic. And I've been to the graveyard. I'm from Halifax, so I've been there. I'm very aware of the story. I
Mhm.
still question it.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
still question it. And
There's
there's a
a
whole alternative universe out there telling us that it was set to sink. So the unsinkable was supposed to sink because they were trying to introduce a new money system, the Federal Reserve System.
there you
So
go.
is there truth in that,
What it
or is that still for storytelling? I don't know. I
and
wasn't
that
there.
and there you go at that whole sinking stories going on
Lost
right
at
now. I
sea.
mean, Matt from
Lost at sea.
Six Sons going on about the sinking of the dollar and the sinking yeah, the whole thing. They're trying to crash the money markets and the amount of people that are completely okay with this. I even went out socially the other day and somebody said, um, oh, I wish they'd just get on with it and just crash everything.
Yeah,
And I'm thinking, wow, to have that mindset that says bring that on, they can't for a minute have any idea what kind of chaos that would be.
that's right.
Uh, and how could you think bring it on and it's going to solve my problems? Whoa,
Well, what
hold on.
what what if, let's play with that. What if we didn't have money? What if? What does the world look like without money?
Well, it's actually quite funny because over the years, I wouldn't say completely, but I would say over the years, um, one learns how to live very differently with money. So you minimize your expenditure and you get it right down. So you've got very little incoming and very little outgoing.
Correct.
And if you live like that for long enough, living minimalistically, then you actually don't really need a lot of money to live. As long as you don't have a very high bar in relation to luxury. But then again,
What do
what
we really need?
what is luxury? You know, is it a roof over your head, a comfortable bed to sleep in, a warm place to go, the ability to wash and clean and dry yourself? I mean, what do you need? You don't really
Thank
need
you
very
for the
much
2
at all.
feet that got me here. Thank you for the
Yeah,
2 feet that helped me get here.
yeah.
Thank you for, the ride. Thank you for whatever it is. Thank you for every morsel, right?
And
Who says money has that much power over us? But a lot of us assign a great amount of power to it and think that it's the cause of all problems. It's
or
not,
the solution. The
or the
am-
solution to all
the
problems,
amount of people that align with the idea that if they just had a load of money, that they wouldn't have any problems.
which is not true. We know that. We've met people who are very badly broken with loads of money.
Yeah. Mm.
It doesn't solve the problems. It just puts a Band-Aid on. And it's a useful tool in this moment. But as we move to a new energy, everything is going into the cloud. And there's a reason we're using this language. We're in air sign now. We're no longer in the water of Pisces, if that's where we were. We were working with the energy of water during the last epoch. And now we are working with the energy of air. Air is our thoughts. So whatever we think about the money, that's what we will manifest. If we think the money is the almighty, then it will be so. And if we think the money is the root of all evil, then it will be so. We are the creators here, especially in this playground of air. But all of it is going into the air. You see people with their already the debit cards. It's all plastic.
Mm.
It's no longer what it was.
I told you about that dream about me going to the markets with my higher self and then putting his hands in the cow pats in order to exchange for the oranges, and him saying that the reason that we got ourselves into so much problem is because the energy of the physical exchange had broken down, and that people had got to the stage where they were buying things with money that they hadn't yet earned on a credit system that they had no intention of paying off. And therefore, the exchange had completely fallen down as against picking up a cow pat and saying, here you go, I exchanged this cow pat for an orange, which was the really depths, gross, basic way of exchange. But now it's all
Eh,
gone up into the air. It's thin air.
It's thin air.
I'm giving you a credit card. I haven't earned that money on it. It's on credit. And the likelihood of me ever paying that off is unlikely. I will probably never pay for this television.
Because it's not real. It's fake money. but the
Mm.
money that we had was also fake. It says, you know, it's written all over the money. But it's the tool that we've used to, it's kind of like the shoes again. You know, the shoe separates us energetically from the exchange of energy between the electromagnetic forces of the earth and us and what's above us. We are the in between. And
Did
we
you call
walk,
us a shoe?
the Shuman. So every shoe has, it interrupts the exchange of energy. Every shoe has a rubber sole or a plastic sole, and more likely. And it just, yeah, while it might feel comfortable, you may find a very comfortable pair of shoes. It's modifying your foot. It's shaping your foot. It's shaping your experience. Are you going to be a little taller? You know, are you connecting to the forces of electricity that are in the earth? No. And what does that do to us on our health meter? How does that affect us? We know that people have a practice of earthing or grounding, and these words are used to describe a way of healing. I know a gentleman who laid on the cold, cold rocks in the northern climates in the winter to try and relieve his pain. He crawled under his cottage. I think it's at the start of the movie, The Grounding, and or something like that, the grounding or the grounding. And he went under his cottage to see if he could relieve his crippling pain by connecting with those electromagnetic forces. And lo and behold, he did. And yeah, it's quite interesting to look at that, just to take your shoes off and put them on the grass. How does that feel? Can you give your pain to the earth to shift that energy? Can you receive good energy from the earth? I believe we can, but we are blocking it. We're blocking that transmission with the shoe.
Okay. I agree. The shoe man.
Yeah,
We-
the shoe man. That's
I
us,
agree.
the shoe
I agree.
man.
I mean, right throughout my whole life, I used to not wear shoes until I moved to this island. And Australia's weird. Like when you live in the UK, I mean, the weather's probably not good enough for you to not wear shoes all the time because the ground's cold and that type of thing. Whereas once you move to Australia, it's probably okay for you to never wear shoes because the climate doesn't really vary that much. I mean, okay, you could say it's kind of cold in the morning if you say it's like, I don't know, like 4 degrees or something, but it's only like that for like 5 minutes.
Mhm.
And then by the time you're getting out of bed, it's probably up to 10 or 11, you know? So it's not
Yeah.
freezing. But the ridiculous thing here is that you've got all these things like bull ants and snakes and spiders and bindies. And I don't even know if you have bindies there. Do you have bindies there?
Never heard of them. What are they, little tiny mosquito?
No, they're like spiky things that are in the grass.
Oh,
So you walk across it's crippling. It's really crippling walking across the grass with bindies in it, you know, because it's all spiky on your feet. It's like ah. And then you've got these around here. We've got all these ants that make huge muddy piles of mud. So rather than your grass, you've got all these mud piles all over your grass. And um, so anyway, my point is that I moved here to this island and I've worn shoes the whole time
that's
when I go
interesting.
out.
Jen.
Whereas that my whole life before this, I tended not to wear shoes as much
It'd
as
be
possible.
interesting to think back energetically to the differences, you know, the before and after. If you can detect the differences, other than obviously it's not a comfortable setting for barefoot walking, but energetically, how has that affected you, this move? You know, positively, negatively. Are you more energetic, less energetic?
I'm older. Has that got anything to do with it?
I don't know. I don't know. I know some really spry old people, and they don't let those ages, that they don't let that stop them from running around like children. I've seen a number of people very old and they've really got loads of energy, still chopping wood, carrying water, still doing for themselves. And
I
yeah,
met a 105-year-old sitting outside having a cigarette one day, and I'm like, God, smoked your whole life? She said, yeah. She said, I've been a nurse. I was a nurse my whole life, career wise, you know, and I used to sneak outside and have a cigarette. And she was quite convinced that smoking didn't harm you.
I'm pretty convinced it doesn't either. I mean, could I make a better choice? Oh, I'm sure. But I think that it brings a lot of comfort to people. You
Mm,
know, I think it's mostly seen in the empathic community. And this is a community that is known to be in a state of flight or fight.
mm.
And we're really needing a deep breath. What would happen if we just took a deep breath
I know.
to
I know.
overcome that craving?
Exactly. I was doing that with
You
somebody
know,
today. I met a woman today, and we had these swizzle sticks in the coffee cups. And I said to her, if you just take a swizzle stick and you use that as a cigarette, a swizzle stick, and breathe in the same way. So take a deep breath in and blow it out in the same way that you would, but just smoke the swizzle stick and try that. Because I mean, I gave up smoking last year. I've talked about this before, but I gave up smoking last year cold turkey. And through the swizzle stick, through my sister telling me that it's all in the breath. It's
I'm
nothing.
more of the diehard 105-year-old that is rebelling against that. Not quite prepared to give it up. But I do make it inconvenient for myself at times. I
Oh,
try to disrupt the habit, right? Like, so to interfere with that chain addiction, you just keep going with it, right? So if I can put myself in situations where it's not an option, that helps.
it's very, 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 very expensive here. I think
Oh, yeah.
Australia is like probably the most other than New Zealand. I think New Zealand's less more expensive. But I mean, a packet of cigarettes here will cost you probably $50, and a packet of tobacco here will cost you $150 or $120 or something. It's very, very, very expensive.
We have it
Um,
from one end of the spectrum to the other. So our native community is known to sell tobacco. And so a lot of people, if they smoke, they'll travel out to the native reserves. And it's an area of land that is set aside for their comfort and they sell gas and cigarettes. And now in the last few years, it's gas, cigarettes, and cannabis.
hmm.
And so a lot of cannabis shops in these areas. And so
It's legitimate, isn't it? Is it legitimate in Ontario now?
it's, yes, it's legal here.
Right.
But I wouldn't necessarily say that it's all good for us. I think if you're going to have it, you should treat it like every other plant and grow it yourself. You know, grow it yourself so that you have some control over what's being done to it, what's being put on it, and get the most organic, authentic version of the plant.
You
Because,
know,
yes, I do believe that the cannabinoids are within us. And I think that there is a benefit to having this plant, just like there's a benefit to having um, chaga mushrooms, you know, but it's the abuse of it and it's the chemicals that are put into a lot of the tobacco products and a lot of the cannabis products that are alarming.
mm,
And I don't think either one of those substances are addictive, but I do think that what's being added to it can be highly addictive
I,
and harmful.
I think addiction's from within. I think addiction of
That
anything
too,
is within.
I agree.
Mm,
I
I,
agree. It's just the habits that we accept, right?
mm, mm,
At every moment, we get an opportunity to say, I want that, and I will have it, or I want that, and or
I
I
won't
can't
have
have
it.
it,
Oh,
I
no,
won't have
can't,
it,
won't,
can't or won't.
won't have it. I won't have it. I will not do that.
Yeah,
I do not smoke. So why would I have a cigarette? I
correct.
do not smoke. It's that definitive mindset that I don't know, overcomes the desire. It's all lack
The
of
want,
discipline
the
in
want
us.
for me is right in the middle. The want is the center of it all, and then our response left, right, won't, will,
Mm,
won't. You know,
mm.
which way will we lean? And here we are again in the chariot trying to determine which direction will we go. Will we keep chasing our tails? I can't, I won't. Or are we going to do something new?
And then the other
I
thing
will.
is about the zenith of this year. This is the probably final comment that I'm going to make on the video tonight, but or the thing that we're going to talk about is this idea that the first 6 months of the year you develop all of the experiences and you build upon the knowledge of what it is that this year's meant to be about. And then past today, so the halfway mark, for the next 6 months, we're going to be practicing everything that we've learned and integrated in the first 6 months of the year. So it's like it's like the downhill part of the upward journey that we've been at. The zenith, we're going to turn around and we're going to start integrating, actually having or practicing those things that we've learned to do in the first 6 months. But I haven't felt that as much this year. I felt that a lot stronger in previous years, but I really don't feel that there's been a lot this year. I don't
No,
feel.
I think some of us have done a lot more work, but others are still on that roller coaster. And I'm noticing, like, my phone's been off the hook the last few days because of the new moon, the solstice. The energy is startling for a lot of people. So it's been an interesting time. Suddenly everybody's animated and wants to talk and share and hear more about, well, what do you think? You know, so I find that quite interesting, the timing. We just came out of 2 weeks waning moon. So when the moon is waning, it's a time of deep reflection and self-discovery, I feel. And now with the new moon, the moon is waxing again. So we're rising. So we're always on that roller coaster ride, Kim. But sometimes we get to, okay, right, now I'm at the high point, nothing to be alarmed about. Now I'm at the low point, nothing to be alarmed about. It, as we become more aware of it, it is less alarming. And we realize now that we have more control over the fluctuation of energy. We can learn to be with it instead of resisting it.
So I did a little video. I don't know whether you watched it. I did a minute long video, minute and a half long or something, called. Oops.
I missed it. I'll have to look for it.
Okay. Oh, I just published it about 2 hours ago or 3 hours ago or something, and it
Oh,
was
great.
it's called The Story of Now. And then one of my friends just sent me a message saying, I will watch The Story of Now later, LOL. Just it's been daft. But it was just a little hold on. It isn't actually called that. It's called The Story of Now Across the Lake and the Fog. I think I read it to you the other night. So it's
That's fabulous. I remember now, yes.
just about where we're at right now. But the good news is that what it was actually saying was that we're at this precipice of opening up to, again, it's been a hard slog, a hard uphill climb. So we're now at the zenith, and the good stuff is just gonna start happening as we go rolling down the hill, and gain momentum, and maybe we're gonna learn to laugh, and maybe we're gonna learn to be a little bit more in the flow a little bit. I've noticed lately, again, on a personal level, that there's a little bit more laughter coming back into the world. And it might just be like that people got so stressed with everything that's been happening, and they're finally just beginning to relax a little bit. But
Well, it's a touchy thing, you know, what we've been through, the discoveries that we've made, the revelations, if you will. It's a bit of a shocking experience, and I think people needed time to digest it and integrate it. And now the best of us are emerging, the healed inner child. You know, so we're here to clear the generational traumas. We're here to clear the wounding. We're here to create a healthier experience now. And okay, we've seen that. Now what? It's up to us. We know this. So how do we create a playful, joyful, creative, happy, lighthearted child? How do we help to support a world that has all that high vibration in it? We are that world. We are a reflection of what is, but we are also emanating and creating.
Let me show you this as well. I'll share the screen to show you this. That's a picture of the moon.
Analima, the Analima.
Yeah, but it's taken from the same position for 28 days.
Yes. Well,
That's how
I wanted
at the
I
same
wanted to
time.
go ahead, Kim.
At
Sorry.
28 days, the moon, a photograph of the moon taken in the same position for 28 days. So go on.
Stunning, isn't it? And it's
Beautiful.
observable. We can see this. We can see this with our own eyes. And this is not something that NASA is showing us.
No.
So I think it's very important, again, to just question what we're being told and not take everything at face value, become very curious, you know, inquire, well, who shared that? Where does it come from? How do they know this? What tools did they use, you know, to measure this? How do we know?
How do I know? I haven't seen, I mean, the one thing that I've observed in myself is that full moon to full moon, if I get up in the middle of the night, the full moon is always in the same position in the sky. Do you know what I mean by that?
Oh, I will say that that's not possible from my perspective.
What I mean is that when there is a full moon,
Oh, yes.
I'm always looking out the same window at the same perspective. So it's not outside the front of my house, it's outside the back of my house. And it's always the same window that frames it. And it just happens. I can sit on the toilet in the middle of the night and look exactly out at the full moon out of the window.
The moon follows the same path as the sun. So you'll see the sun rise in the east and then it appears to disappear and set in
But
the west.
how can it follow the same path as the sun if the sun's like totally different amount of days than the moon? Like the moon's
Yes.
got a 28-day rotation and the sun's got a variable one from month to month. Or is it just the way I'm
Yes.
measuring the sun? It's the way
Well, but
if there was
there is
13 if there was 13 months in the year rather than 12, then it would be the same.
well, for example, right now the moon is in Leo and it will sit in the house of Leo for approximately 3 days. So 2 to 3 days it will sit in each of the 12 houses, and that completes your cycle. There's your 29 and a half days. Once it has traveled around the zodiac. So at the moment, the moon is in Leo, so our emotions may be a little fiery. And then we're going to move into Virgo. That's our next stop. So emotionally, we may be a little more analytical and so on and so forth. You know, as we move in towards Scorpio, emotionally, we may be really thinking sexual thoughts, you know, because Scorpio is about what's hidden. It's our sexual energy. So it definitely travels. It travels in that direction. You'll see it rise in the east, and I watch it go daily. Like right now, I sat here for a reason today. I wanted to demonstrate what you're showing. So I put the sun behind me as it's rising in the east, behind me in the morning. And you can see, if you look at the beginning of the video where the sun was sitting to where it's sitting now, you'll see there's a great difference. It's much higher up in the trees. It's not sitting right where it was. Can you see it still, Kim? Can you see it through the trees?
No. But the
No?
sun.
Yes.
Oh,
Kind
technically,
of.
but it was lower before.
Correct.
Why has it gone higher?
Well, because it's constantly in motion, just like us.
Okay, you also made an observation earlier about the hue, because I wrote on somebody's video the other day, they'd taken some videos of Mallorca or Mallorca, and I'd said, wow, that's a completely different light than I experience in Australia, a different hue,
Sure.
not a different light, a different hue of light. Like, I'd spent quite a lot of time out in the water this week, and I'd noticed that there's a white brightness the about the sun here, especially the winter sun seems to be brighter than the summer sun. The
Correct.
winter sun seems to be like white, white light. And then if you look at it on the ground through the reflection of the trees, it's not soft, it's like really bright reflection of the ground. Like, so sometimes so bright you can't look at it. And yet, if I look at pictures of where you're from, or look at pictures of where, say, somebody's taking pictures of Mallorca or Portugal, which is where James is at the moment. I was following his videos, and his videos have got the sun there. And I don't know, it just looks like a different light. It looks like a different sun. I mean, obviously, it's not a different sun, but
Well, or isn't it? Maybe it is.
it,
Who knows, Kim?
why would you experience a different color?
I think I think again, it comes down to the angels or the angles. So it's the angle that we're at, it's the angle of light that we're experiencing.
The angle of light. That I
It
can,
has to do with the way like light will bounce off a mirror, for example. It's like that prism effect. It gives us a rainbow. It's part of who we are. When we sit in the light, like it just feeds us a special energy. I feel that there's codes that are being downloaded when you sit and sun gaze in the morning. If you sit and look at the sun in the morning or as the evening sets.
oh, I've just answered my own silly question. I'm saying, how can the sun be up there behind you when it was lower before and it's morning there?
Correct. The sun
So the sun's
rises.
rising. I'm
The
thinking,
sun's rising.
I wasn't thinking of that. I'm thinking of it being night because it's night here.
And if you look at the sundial, you're reading the time by the way that the light is being cast upon us.
Yeah,
So at hot o'clock, I call it hot o'clock,
yeah,
between 2 and 4 o'clock, the sun
yeah,
is sitting in the house of Leo.
yeah,
And whether, like right now, the sun is in Cancer, but the houses don't move. The houses of the zodiac you use to count the time. And so I can see by where the sun sits right now, it's roughly 10 o'clock here. And later today at 2-4, the sun will be right above my head, and it would cast a distinct shadow, allowing people to read the time.
yeah,
And you can use a simple sundial to read the time still.
yeah,
Nothing has changed. There's
yeah,
nothing new under the sun. This
yeah,
is a great big sky clock. The sun tells us what day it is and what month it is. Or no, sorry, the moon tells us about the month. This is where the name comes from. And so the moon, we have 1 month after it has been 2 weeks waning and 2 weeks waxing. And in that time, it travels the entire zodiac. So in the waxing stage, we're in the lighter stage of it. So we're waxing in Cancer right now.
mm,
Or sorry, waxing in Leo. Waxing in Leo, the next move, the sun will be in Leo and will likely be waxing in Virgo. So it all has a pattern, a very distinct pattern.
mm-hmm,
And yes, the days are shown by the sun, 365 days to complete the circle, and only 24 hours for the moon to reappear. And it's either still in the same house or it's headed into a new house. And our next stop will be Virgo. So the emotional energy for us right now is Leo. And it's a very creative. This is why I'm getting so many hits about the inner child. It is that solar plexus energy. It's the child within. It's our will. It's what will we create. The will of a child is until it's not, until it's broken. So if our will is healed, we can be playful. And, it's just through watching the moon and the sun that I start to notice these patterns. And this is where I say there's nothing new. This time next year, we could probably sit and have the exact same discussion, like a deja vu moment,
Yeah.
just observing what's being offered.
Okay. Well, let's do that. Let's try
Yeah,
and have the same discussion next year. Like a
let's touch base.
similar and the same maybe maybe we should start doing videos like on the equinoxes or the solstices and see what we can actually observe
Detect.
on those dates. I mean, one of the observations I made on one of the solstices was that the point where the sun rose and the moon came up and the sun went down, they were at the exact opposite part. You could look to the left and see the sun and look to the right and see the moon. And
Correct.
they were this exact same size. They were huge on the horizon. And I just happened to be, it's happened to me twice, and twice I've been with my sister when it happened, Carolyn. And once I was on a boat out on the bay here, and the other time I was sat at the Lighthouse restaurant, and it just happened that I was somewhere where I could see both, and at both times it was unintentionally.
Yes.
So I didn't intend for that to happen. It just happened. I happened to be there.
You were in the right place. You were energetically going with the flow, and that's
Yeah.
where you found yourself. How cool.
Yeah, it was cool. The other thing that is really obvious is that there's a king tide around about the winter solstice. So there may be a king tide on the, so I should observe the tide tomorrow. I should go down and have a look and see if there's a king tide on the summer solstice, because there is a king tide around about the winter solstice. And I'm talking about a really, really high tide. Like in the old jetty we used to have here on the island, when that king tide would come through, you'd be paddling up the jetty to the ferry because it would be up to your
Yes.
ankles. Whereas they put a new jetty in now, so it might not be as observable now.
Oh, I see. Yeah, well, the water's always changing. I do think it's a representation of us. I have a space that I like to be in, and I see that the shoreline is different every year. So once the winter has come and gone, and we've been in that deep state of reflection, what emerges is sometimes the land that was there is sunk. It's underwater, the water's very high, or more land is revealed as the water is very low. So each year it's like a different shoreline in this one area at least. And it just, again, it reminds me of the work that we do. It's very subtle. It's done in the dark months of winter and autumn. But then we reemerge as the phoenix in the springtime. And who are we now?
I had a, I had a friend of mine who died a couple of years ago, but she was in her 80s. And her father was a fisherman at a place called Wynnum, which is like a coastal suburb near here. But she said that the house that she grew up in, because often in Queensland, I'll actually get a picture of the type of houses that they have here. I'll show you a picture of it, kind of thing. So they're called Queenslanders, and they're on stilts. Queenslander houses. So the lower part of them's on stilts, so they're up high like that. There.
Ah,
So the lower part of them, that's what they call a Queenslander. That type of thing there, where the house is actually raised up.
this is in Australia, Kim.
This is in Australia. Anyway, this friend of mine, Joyce, her father was a fisherman. And she said when those king tides came through, the king tide used to envelop the lower part of the house. So
Wow.
she would
Wow.
have to come down her front steps and the tide would be beyond her house. and the tide would
That's
come
amazing.
right the way in. I bet it doesn't happen anymore.
That's really amazing. And it's interesting that they call it King Tide in the Queen's Land.
The King Tide in
The-
Queen's Land. So
The King Tide in the Queen's Land and how it comes right into her house.
it would be like that. That's Wynnum. That's the place where she was, and she said that her dad's house was like that, and the tide would just come right in. Anyway, that's
We've
right.
had a similar experience at our we have a little cottage, and the water will be halfway up those steps. So there are times when our waterfront property the water's very high, and then there's times when you can walk to the bottom of the steps and walk a number of feet before you can touch water. So the water really ebbs, flows. I'm on a lake. It's not even supposedly an ocean, even though it looks like an ocean. It's an inland ocean, perhaps.
But you got no tides on the lake.
I wouldn't say that because I see an ebb and a flow. I do see an ebb and a flow. It's not, maybe others don't notice it, but I do notice the water rises and falls, and each year it's different. This year the water is very low, and I would expect it will likely stay that way for some time. But the last 2 years we've had very high waters up above the step.
Right,
And
but
so I
but
do
that's more to
notice.
do
I
with the
can't help.
rain. That's more to do with the
Yes,
rain rather than an actual tide. I mean, it's just like the water coming down off the mountains and filling up the lake.
that's
So
fair, Kim.
over periods of time, it would come up and it would go down according to how much rain, because it must be a catchment area.
That's fair. We watched as there was a startling difference occurring right under our noses. One day, the water, 1 minute there was no water there, and then suddenly the water became very high in that one spot. It had nothing to do with rain, but there is a dam north of us. And so they do tamper with the flow of the water.
Mm,
And I noticed that.
mm.
I think that I can really tell if they're blocking our ability to have the water or if they've turned it, if they've got it full open. I think that has a lot to do with it too. So it's hard to detect.
Even the
I do wonder about these Great
even
Lakes. These
even the
Great Lakes are
language,
enormous.
the language
Yeah,
of dam. What's the
yeah,
language of dam? Like what? Why dam? Why is that the language? Why
a block. Dam,
dam? A
dam,
dam? Because you think of
a dam.
damned, or you think of like thinking of hell. I'm thinking of hell and the
Damnation.
damned. No, I'm thinking of damned, like you're damned, you know? You're
Yeah,
blocked. There's a block in the flow of the water, you're damned.
yeah,
Which is like parallel to there's a block in the flow of the water. If you don't let your emotions flow, then you would be damned. Um,
damsel comes to mind. Damsel.
damsel.
Um,
And then I had
Also, the little
another,
Dutch boy with his finger in the hole, blocking the water from leaking from the dam.
and then I had a thought when I was coming back on the boat the other night, um, about my mother. My mother died from being an alcoholic. And then I had this like aha moment and I thought, oh my goodness, she drowned herself. She's very bad at expressing emotion. She's very bad at expressing how she felt. And she died from blocking expressing that emotion. She drowned. She drowned herself.
Yes.
It's just like
Well,
wow.
it does create a block, whenever you use kind of substances like that, there's a block in our ability to sort of pick up on all of these things that we try and dive in and find.
Yeah.
So it's like all these years of we think they've been exploring outer space, and now we find ourselves exploring the inner space and making these discoveries about, well, what alcohol really does, and how it took your mom, you know
And the
but it wasn't
trendiness,
really the
do you know what?
alcohol that
Do you know
took
what?
her. It was that emotion, that unmanaged
Blocked.
emotional
I know.
energy that she
I
was
know.
trying
That's
really
what I'm
hard to
saying.
manage on her own.
She drowned. She drowned
Yeah.
herself. But hold on. There was something about that else I was going to say, which was the amount of attributed happiness that our societal movie mindset, like the general thing about, I think I've talked about this before, but like on movies you'll say, oh yeah, I had a great time last night, I got completely wasted, like that input of the idea that getting completely drunk is fun,
Yeah.
or it's the best fun you can have. I went out last night and I got completely wasted. Like, where did that come from? And why did we need to be completely drunk in order to have fun? And why was that so input into us?
Well,
Did you live through that too?
oh
Was that
yeah,
just
it's
me?
very highly commercialized. I mean, my house was very loud on the weekends. We would turn the music up for the drinks, and we'd get our chores done and say, okay, let's have some friends over, and we would get really loud and drunk and happy. I will
Yeah.
say I was fortunate in that it was always a happy, fun experience. And
Okay.
it did allow us to sort of escape the mundane,
Mm-hmm.
if you will. It's
Mm-hmm.
what we were conditioned to do.
Mm-hmm.
It was my youngest son who actually once said, um, who says we have to drink on Friday night? Like where did we get this idea that Friday night better get to the liquor store,
That's what I'm
get
saying.
yourself what you're going to drink this weekend? Who said we have to do that?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Was it conditioning, or was it something else? Like, is this generation that's currently up and coming, and it might be to do with the expense of the alcohol now. Like, it's very expensive to actually, when I was young, you could go out and easily have, 20 drinks at the pub or something. I
Yes.
mean, in Australia, a drink, I don't even know how much a drink at the pub is now, but I would imagine it would be like $6 or $7. So you couldn't have 20 drinks ready, because that would be like $140 or something. It would be like hugely expensive.
Yes.
Uh, that's like a packet of cigarettes.
So how do
um,
we learn to have fun without the alcohol? Because we're able to do this, but I think we've restricted ourselves. We've not allowed ourselves to speak our truth. We've conditioned ourselves to, for me, I didn't get the parents that slept in twin beds. Mom
yeah.
went to bed fully made up with pearls around her neck. You know, I didn't get that experience. Poor me. I better start drinking.
Uh,
Where does these ideas come from? I feel like it's all being offered to us, and people say, "Yeah, that sounds right to me."
mm,
And we do choose our experiences because some people, I mean, five boys, they all grew up in the same house. They've made very different choices for
yeah.
themselves.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it does have a lot to do with your upbringing,
Yeah.
but it also has everything to do with your chart. When you were born, what are you prone to experience? What lessons will you be learning in this lifetime? As a Gemini or a Leo or whoever you showed up as? What is it that we're here to learn? Because this, to me, is a big classroom, the devil's playground.
Yeah. Yeah.
It does feel that way.
Right. I'm cutting it off because it's
Feels
midnight.
good, Kim. Nice chatting.
I'm
And
about to
like always
I'm
fun to be in the Imaginarium,
I'm about
curiously
to turn
traveling
into a
around with you.
pumpkin in an hour, in a minute, 1 minute, and I'm turning into a pumpkin.
Well, the sun's going to get a lot hotter here, so I might need to shed a layer. Can you still see it in the photo? It's way above my head now. Life
I,
is always moving.
I think you
And
can. Yeah. Now
yeah,
that I realize it's moving up and not down. It,
yes.
it, it really had my mind boggled before. I get I get that a lot. All right. I really was going to stop talking, but when I moved to the southern hemisphere, it was all wrong. I used to have a very, very intuitive feeling of where I was, north, south, east, west. I always kind of felt where I was. And when I moved to the southern hemisphere, it all went, eh. I
I can see that. Astrologically, we've had a few experiences that are still unexplained, so we'll have to take a closer look at that someday.
Okay. All right.
What is that all about anyway?
I don't know. It's weird. All right. Anyway, lovely talking to you. Thank you very much for coming.
Always. Thank you, Kim.
All right. And we'll talk
Thanks,
soon.
friends.
See ya.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.